Blood streamed down Kira's face as she pressed her back against the rough stone wall, struggling to control her ragged breathing. The alien hunting party would detect any sound, their auditory senses far superior to human ears. 20 meters below, three Azurians with their distinctive blue skin moved through the dense undergrowth, their movements fluid and predatory. One carried a curved blade that caught the crimson light of the setting sun, still stained with the blood of her companion. 3 days earlier, their escape pod had crashed into this uncharted region of Proxima Centauri b, a world the expedition had designated for preliminary observation only. Now Kira was the sole survivor, armed with nothing but a hunting knife, her training, and a desperate will to live. "Find the sky creature," hissed the tallest Azurian, his voice carrying clearly in the still air. "The elders demand we bring the intruder alive. It has knowledge of the stars." Kira pressed herself deeper into the shadow of the outcropping. The wound on her temple throbbed, but she couldn't afford to lose consciousness. Not here, not now. The survival pack she'd salvaged from the wreckage contained just enough medical supplies to keep her going for another day, maybe two. After that, she refused to consider the alternative. The hunt had begun the moment their pod tore through the atmosphere, lighting up the sky like a meteor. Within hours, the Azurians had surrounded the crash site. Reeves had tried to establish communication, standard first contact protocol, but the natives had responded with a volley of arrows that pierced his throat before he could finish his greeting. Commander Ellis had fought fiercely, buying Kira precious minutes to escape into the alien wilderness. Now she was alone on a planet 16 trillion kilometers from Earth, being hunted by beings whose culture and intentions she could barely comprehend. Kira studied the terrain ahead. The mountain range offered potential shelter, but reaching it meant crossing an open valley patrolled by hunting parties. The dense jungle behind her teemed with predators whose howls echoed through the night. Neither option promised safety, but standing still meant certain capture. As twilight deepened, the hunting party below moved deeper into the forest. Kira seized her moment, descending the rocky slope with careful precision. Her boots made no sound on the soft earth as she navigated toward the base of the nearest mountain. The twin moons of Proxima Centauri b began to rise, bathing the landscape in an eerie blue-violet glow that turned the alien forest into a scene from some primordial nightmare. A twig snapped nearby. Kira froze, knife already drawn. From the shadows emerged a figure unlike the hunters, smaller, with skin the pale blue of morning sky rather than the deep azure of the warriors. The Azurian's eyes widened at the sight of her, four pupils expanding in what Kira hoped was surprise rather than aggression. They stared at each other, neither moving, neither breathing. The young Azurian carried no weapons. Instead, a crude pack made of woven fibers hung from one shoulder. After what felt like an eternity, the creature extended a six-fingered hand, palm up, revealing a small carved stone that glowed with bioluminescence. "Taeris," the alien said, touching its chest with his free hand. "Taeris." Kira hesitated, knife still raised. First contact had already gone catastrophically wrong once. But something in the alien's posture, a vulnerability, a curiosity, stayed her hand. "Kira," she replied cautiously, pressing her own palm against her chest. The alien's facial ridges rippled in what might have been a smile. "Kira," it repeated, the name strange on its bifurcated tongue. Before she could respond, distant calls echoed through the forest. The hunting party had changed direction. Taeris' expression transformed instantly, the ridges flattening against its skull in what Kira instinctively understood as fear. The alien grabbed her wrist with surprising strength, pulling her toward a dense thicket. Kira's survival instinct screamed to resist, to break free and run, but something deeper, the same intuition that had kept her alive through countless missions, told her to trust this unexpected encounter. Together they slipped into the undergrowth as the hunters' calls grew louder, their shadows elongating in the moonlight like reaching specters. Taeris pressed a finger to Kira's lips, then to its own, a gesture so human it momentarily stunned her. As they crouched in silence, she realized with sudden clarity that she was no longer merely being hunted. She had become a pawn in something far more complex, a struggle between factions of a civilization humanity had never intended to encounter. And somehow, in the eyes of this alien creature, she represented something worth protecting. The calls of the hunters faded into the distance. Taeris tugged at Kira's sleeve, gesturing toward the mountains with urgency. Night was falling rapidly now, and with it came new dangers. With no better options, Kira nodded her agreement to the unspoken plan. Together, human and alien began their ascent into the unknown heights of this strange world, while behind them dozens of blue-skinned hunters continued their relentless search, their torches piercing the darkness like vengeful stars. Dawn broke over the mountains, revealing a landscape both beautiful and terrifying. Jagged peaks thrust upward through a sea of mist, their stone faces carved by winds that howled with the fury of ancient Brahmans. Kira and Taeris had taken shelter in a shallow cave halfway up the eastern slope, exhaustion finally overpowering their fear. Kira awoke to find Taeris examining her wound with gentle fingers. The alien's touch was cool, almost soothing against her fevered skin. When Taeris saw that she was awake, it opened its pack and removed a handful of crushed leaves with a pungent medicinal smell. "No," Kira said, pulling away. "I can't." Taeris made a soft clicking sound that somehow conveyed exasperation. It pointed to the wound, then to the leaves, and then made a gesture that unmistakably meant infection. With its other hand, it mimed what would happen if the wound remained untreated, a theatrical display of suffering and death that would have been comical under different circumstances. "Fine," Kira relented, "but if you poison me, I'm going to be extremely disappointed." The paste burned like fire when applied, causing Kira to bite her lip until it bled, but the pain subsided quickly, replaced by a numbing sensation. Taeris nodded, apparently satisfied, and returned the remaining herbs to its pack. "Thank you," Kira said, touching her temple gingerly. The swelling already seemed reduced. "Taeris, why are you helping me?" The alien tilted its head, clearly struggling to comprehend her words. Instead of attempting to answer, it reached into its pack again and withdrew a flat piece of bark. With a sharpened stone, it began to draw crude but recognizable shapes that told a story. First, a circle with radiating lines, the sun, then several smaller circles, planets. One planet had a distinct mark, which Taeris indicated was their current location. Next came shapes that Kira recognized as spacecraft, not the primitive vessels she might have expected, but sophisticated designs that suggested advanced technology. Taeris pointed to these drawings, then to Kira, raising four pupilled eyes in question. "Yes," she confirmed, "I came from beyond your world, in a ship, a vessel that travels between stars." The alien nodded eagerly, adding more to the drawing, figures with raised weapons surrounding a crashed vessel. Then, separate from these, another group of figures with what appeared to be books or tablets. Taeris pointed to itself, then to the second group. "You're not with the hunters," Kira said slowly. "You're what? Scholars? Scientists?" Taeris couldn't understand the words but seemed to grasp her comprehension. It added more to the drawing, the warrior group holding what appeared to be ancient artifacts, while the scholar group studied the stars through what could only be telescopes. "A divided society," Kira murmured. "Those who look backward versus those who look upward." The alien's facial ridges rippled in what she was beginning to recognize as agreement. It added one final detail to the drawing, a structure high in the mountains, where the scholar group appeared to be gathered. Taeris pointed to this structure, then toward the higher peaks. "That's where we're going?" Kira asked. "Your people? Will they help me?" Before Taeris could respond, a sound from outside the cave froze them both. The distinctive call of the hunting party, much closer than before. They had been tracked. Taeris extinguished their small fire with a handful of dirt, motioning for Kira to gather her few possessions. They would need to move quickly, to climb higher into the mountains where the hunting parties might not follow. As they slipped from the cave into the harsh morning light, Kira caught her first glimpse of the valley below. Dozens of blue figures moved through the forest, their search pattern methodical and relentless. This was no longer just a hunting party. It was an army. Taeris tugged her sleeve, pointing toward a nearly invisible path that wound higher into the mountains. Their journey would be treacherous, but the alternative was unthinkable. With one last glance at the approaching force, Kira followed her alien guide deeper into the unknown. The mountain path grew narrower as they climbed, forcing them to press their backs against the cliff face to avoid the sheer drop. Wind howled through the passes, carrying with it a fine dust that coated their skin and clothes. Kira's lungs burned with each breath, the thin air at this altitude making every step a battle. Taeris moved with the sure-footed grace of one born to this environment, occasionally pausing to help Kira navigate particularly difficult sections. The alien's strength belied its slight build. Several times it caught Kira as she slipped, preventing falls that would have ended their journey permanently. By midday, they had climbed high enough to look back over the valley. The hunting parties were still visible, but their progress had slowed as they debated which path to follow. Kira allowed herself a moment of hope. Perhaps they could reach Taeris' people before the hunters caught up. That hope was short-lived. As they rounded a bend in the path, they encountered a sight that made Kira's blood run cold. A sentry post carved into the mountainside, staffed by 3 blue-skinned warriors whose armor and weapons matched those of the hunters below. Taeris pulled Kira back before they were spotted, gesturing frantically for silence. They retreated to a small outcropping that offered minimal shelter. "We can't go forward, and we can't go back," Kira whispered, though she knew Taeris couldn't understand her words. "What now?" The alien studied the terrain with focused intensity. After a moment, it pointed to a narrow crevice in the rock face, barely visible unless one knew to look for it. A hidden path, perhaps known only to Taeris' scholar faction. The passage was so tight that Kira had to remove her backpack and push it ahead of her. Sharp rocks tore at her clothing and skin as she inched forward, fighting claustrophobia with each movement. Taeris followed, its slighter frame allowing for easier passage. The crevice eventually widened into a tunnel that wound deeper into the mountain itself. No light penetrated here, and Kira was forced to rely on touch alone until Taeris produced another of the bioluminescent stones from its pack, casting their surroundings in a pale green glow. The tunnel was not natural. Smooth sections alternated with rougher passages, suggesting it had been partially carved by intelligent hands. Ancient symbols covered some walls, geometric patterns interspersed with what might have been writing. Taeris paused occasionally to examine these, its fingers tracing the carvings with reverence. "Your ancestors made this?" Kira asked, forgetting momentarily that they shared no common language. To her surprise, Taeris nodded, though whether in response to her specific question or simply acknowledging the significance of the place was unclear. The alien pointed to one particular symbol that recurred throughout the carvings, a spiral surrounding a point of light. "Star travelers," Taeris said in heavily accented English, touching the symbol and then pointing upward. Kira stared in shock. You understand our language?" Taeris made a gesture indicating a little. It tapped its head, then touched Kira's forehead gently. "Learn, fast." "You've been learning from me," Kira realized, "while we've been traveling. How is that possible?" "Taeris people. Connect. Minds." The alien struggled with the words. "Not all Azuri. Only mine scholars." A form of telepathy or accelerated learning, either would represent an evolutionary advantage that humanity couldn't match. Kira considered the implications. If some Azurians possessed this ability, it might explain the social division Taeris had illustrated. One faction that could share knowledge directly would naturally develop different values than those without the ability. "The hunters," she said slowly, "they don't have this gift?" "No gift," Taeris confirmed. "They fear. What they not understand, they destroy." The parallel to certain chapters of human history wasn't lost on Kira, and that's why they attacked us immediately. They saw our technology as a threat. "Yes, they think stars belong to bombs, not for people." Taeris' expression turned grave. "They kill you, take your ship knowledge, use against scholars." The political implications were becoming clearer. Kira wasn't just a curiosity or a threat. She represented a potential weapon in an ideological conflict that had likely been brewing for generations. "And your people? The scholars? What do they want with me?" Taeris hesitated, searching for the right words. "Learn, share, grow." It pointed again to the spiral symbol. "Long ago, our people came from stars. Hunters forget. Scholars remember." Before Kira could ask more questions, a distant sound echoed through the tunnel, the unmistakable resonance of stone striking stone. Someone else had discovered the hidden passage. "Hunters," Taeris whispered, extinguishing the bioluminescent stone. "Come, must hurry." In total darkness, they continued forward, guided only by Taeris' memory of the path and the cool draft that suggested an opening somewhere ahead. Kira's training had prepared her for many scenarios, but stumbling through an alien labyrinth while pursued by hostile warriors had not been covered in any exoplanetary survival manual. The tunnel began to slope upward, and the air grew fresher. Faint light appeared ahead, not the harsh sunlight of the surface, but a softer, diffused glow. As they approached the exit, Taeris suddenly stopped, raising a hand in warning. "Wait," it whispered. "Listen." Kira strained her ears. Beyond the sounds of pursuit from behind, she detected something else from the chamber ahead. Voices speaking in the musical language of the Azurians, but with an urgency that transcended the language barrier. Taeris' expression fell. "Too late," it said. "Hunters there also." They were trapped between two groups of warriors with nowhere to run and no way to fight. Kira gripped her knife, a pitiful weapon against the sophisticated bows and blades of the Azurian hunters, but better than nothing. "How many ahead?" she asked. "3, maybe 4. Taeris looked back the way they had come. "More behind." Kira weighed their options. Fighting was suicide. Surrender meant certain death. Or worse, being used as a tool in an alien conflict. There had to be another way. She studied the chamber entrance ahead. The light suggested a large space, possibly with multiple exits. If they could create a distraction... "Taeris," she said urgently, "do you trust me?" The alien met her gaze, all 4 pupils dilating slightly. "Yes." "Then follow my lead." The chamber beyond the tunnel was larger than Kira had anticipated, a natural cavern expanded by artificial means into what appeared to be a ceremonial space. Stone platforms at different elevations surrounded a central area where 3 Azurian hunters were examining what could only be described as a primitive observatory. Holes in the distant ceiling allowed shafts of light to strike specific points on the floor, where metal markers had been placed to track celestial movements. Kira and Taeris crouched in the shadows of the tunnel entrance, observing. The hunters had not yet noticed them, too absorbed in their desecration of the scholar site. One warrior was systematically destroying the astronomical instruments, while another collected scrolls and tablets from niches in the walls. "They take knowledge," Taeris whispered, anger evident even in its limited vocabulary. "Burn later." Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew louder. They had minutes at most before they would be discovered from both directions. Kira scanned the chamber, noting multiple exits on the far side. If they could cross unseen, an idea formed, desperate, but with a slim chance of success. She removed her jacket and began tearing it into strips. "What did you do?" Taeris asked. "Making a distraction," Kira replied, wrapping the strips around her knife handle. "Is there anything flammable in your pack? All resin?" Taeris seemed to understand. It produced a small container of what looked like tree sap, which Kira immediately applied to her makeshift torch. Using her emergency fire starter, one of the few pieces of technology she had salvaged, she ignited the bundle. "When I throw this, run for that exit," she pointed to the furthest passage. "Don't wait for me." Taeris shook its head firmly. "Together." There was no time to argue. The sounds from the tunnel behind them had resolved into distinct footsteps. Kira took a deep breath, aimed, and hurled the flaming torch toward the pile of scrolls the hunters had gathered. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The ancient papers ignited with explosive force, sending up a column of flame and acrid smoke. The hunters reacted with shouts of alarm, rushing toward the fire and away from the exits. "Now," Kira hissed, and they sprinted across the chamber. They had covered half the distance when a shout from behind signaled their discovery. An arrow whistled past Kira's head, embedding itself in the stone floor inches from her foot. A second shot would not miss. Taeris suddenly veered toward one of the stone platforms, gesturing frantically for Kira to follow. As they reached it, the alien pressed a specific sequence of symbols carved into its base. A section of the floor slid open, revealing a narrow shaft with handholds cut into its sides. "Down," Taeris commanded, already lowering itself into the opening. Kira didn't hesitate. She swung her legs into the shaft and began to descend as arrows clattered against the stone above. The opening closed automatically once they were both inside, plunging them into darkness broken only by faint light filtering up from below. They descended rapidly, the sounds of pursuit muffled and then silenced completely by the thick stone surrounding them. After what felt like an eternity of climbing downward, Kira's feet touched solid ground. They had reached another tunnel, this one sloping gently downward. "Where does this lead?" she asked, her voice echoing slightly in the confined space. "To truth," Taeris replied cryptically, producing another bioluminescent stone from its seemingly inexhaustible supply. "Come." The tunnel was older than the previous one, its walls unmarked by carvings or symbols. They walked in silence for nearly an hour, the passage gradually widening until it opened into a cavern so vast that Taeris's light could not illuminate the ceiling or far walls. As they ventured further in, Kira began to make out shapes in the darkness. Enormous structures that at first appeared to be natural rock formations, but revealed themselves as artificial constructions upon closer inspection. Geometric patterns too precise to be natural, surfaces too smooth to have been formed by geological processes. "What is this place?" Kira whispered, her voice swallowed by the immensity of the space. Taeris led her toward the center of the cavern, where a circular platform rose from the floor. As they approached, lights began to activate throughout the space, not the warm glow of flames, but the cool, steady illumination of technology. "Home," Taeris said simply. "First home." The cavern was now fully illuminated, revealing what Kira's mind initially refused to accept. The broken hull of a spacecraft, colossal in scale, partially embedded in the rock as if it had crashed there eons ago. Around it, structures had been built using a combination of ship materials and local stone, a settlement preserved like an archaeological site. "Your people came from the suits," Kira breathed, understanding finally dawning. "This is your ship, your colony ship." Taeris nodded solemnly. "Long ago, many generations. Ship, damaged, could not leave. And over time, some of your people forgot their origins. They created myths about the stars instead of remembering the truth. Yes, hunters say stars are gods, forbidden to reach." Taeris gestured to the ancient vessel. "Scholars keep truth. Wait for star, people return." The implications were staggering. The Azurians were not native to this world. They were descendants of space travelers, possibly from a civilization far more advanced than humanity's. Their current technological regression represented thousands of years of lost knowledge, preserved only in fragments by the scholar faction. "And now we've arrived," Kira said. "Just not from where your ancestors came from. Different stars, same spirit." Taeris's expression brightened. "You help us remember. We help you survive." Before Kira could respond, new lights began to activate throughout the cavern. From openings in the walls emerged dozens of Azurians, their skin the same pale blue as Taeris's. They approached cautiously, their expressions ranging from fear to wonder as they beheld the human in their midst. An older Azurian with elaborate markings on its face stepped forward, addressing Taeris in their native language. A rapid conversation ensued, with Taeris gesturing frequently toward Kira in the ceiling, presumably indicating the surface and the hunting parties. Finally, the elder turned to Kira and spoke in halting English. "Welcome, star traveler. Long we wait for this day." "You speak my language," Kira said, astonished. "Some words, from old records." The elder gestured to the ship. "Your kind visited before, long ago." This revelation hit Kira like a physical blow. Humanity had no record of previous contact with the alien civilizations, let alone one that had visited this specific planet. Either the elder was mistaken, or there were aspects of human history that had been deliberately erased from the records. "That's impossible," she said. "We've never been here before. We've never even left our own solar system until now." The elder exchanged glances with Taeris. "Perhaps different humans, or your leaders keep secrets?" The latter possibility was disturbingly plausible. Earth's space programs had always been intertwined with military and political agendas. Could there have been classified missions, exploratory vessels sent out centuries ago that never returned? Ships whose very existence was then purged from public knowledge. "I don't know," Kira admitted, "but I need to find out. I need to return to my people." The elder's expression grew grave. "Hunters control surface. They search for you, for your ship." "My ship is destroyed," Kira said, "but there's a beacon. If I can activate it, my people will send help." Beacon still works? Taeris asked. Emergency systems are designed to survive crashes. If I can reach it, yes, it should work. The Elder conferred with several other Azurians before turning back to Kira. We help you reach Beacon, but must move quickly. Hunters search caves now. Why would you risk yourselves for me? Kira asked. Because, the Elder said, gesturing toward the ancient spacecraft. We remember what hunters forget. Stars are future, not past. Your coming proves this. It touched the spiral symbol on its chest, the same one Kira had seen in the tunnel carvings. Cycle continues. A young Azurian rushed into the chamber, speaking urgently to the Elder. The news, whatever it was, caused immediate concern among the scholars. Hunters found old passages, Taeris translated. Coming this way, many warriors. How long do we have? Kira asked. Not long, hours, maybe less. The Elder issued rapid commands, and the scholar community sprang into action. Some began gathering ancient artifacts and texts, while others retrieved weapons that looked ceremonial rather than practical. The scholars were clearly unaccustomed to fighting. You have weapons? Kira asked. I thought your faction was peaceful. Peaceful, yes. Foolish, no. The Elder directed her attention to a group of Azurians unveiling what appeared to be energy weapons salvaged from the ancient ship. Some technology still works, used only for defense. Taeris approached with a small group of younger scholars. We take you to ship now, before hunters arrive. Kira hesitated. These people were offering to risk their lives to help her reach the beacon, potentially triggering an all-out conflict with the hunter faction in the process. The ethical implications were troubling. If I leave now, I might avoid involving you in a war, she said. The hunters want me, not you. The Elder shook its head. War already comes, has been coming for generations. Your arrival only, what is word? Catalyst? But these are your people, Kira argued. Isn't there a way to resolve this peacefully? To show the hunters the truth? Truth shown many times, the Elder replied sadly. Rejected many times. Hunters choose belief over evidence, choose power over knowledge. Again, the parallel to human history was uncomfortable. How many civilizations had fallen because they rejected scientific evidence in favor of comforting myths? How many wars had been fought because one faction refused to acknowledge reality? I understand, Kira said finally. What's your plan? Taeris unfolded a crude map on a nearby table, a representation of the cave systems in the surface terrain. Hunter's Guard crash site, it explained, pointing to a location several kilometers from the mountain. But they not know all passages. We use old maintenance tunnels from colony days. The Elder added, tunnels dangerous, not used for generations, but faster than surface. It was a desperate plan with numerous potential failure points, but Kira saw no alternatives. If she remained with the scholars, the hunters would eventually find them all. If she attempted to reach the beacon alone, she would almost certainly be captured. This compromise offered a slim chance of success. When do we leave? She asked. Now, Taeris replied. No time to waste. The Elder approached Kira with what appeared to be a gift, a blade unlike any she had seen before. Its edge glimmered with an almost liquid sheen, and the handle was perfectly balanced for her grip. Metal from stars, the Elder explained, from ship, stronger than hunter weapons. Kira accepted the blade with appropriate reverence. Thank you. I'll use it wisely. Use to survive, the Elder corrected. Return to your people. Tell truth of what you find here. As the small expedition prepared to depart, Kira found herself wondering what truth the Elder referred to. Was it simply the existence of the Azurian civilization? Or was there something more? Something connected to the alleged previous human contact that the Elder had mentioned? These questions would have to wait. For now, survival remained the priority. With one last look at the ancient colony ship, a haunting reminder of how advanced civilizations could fall, Kira followed Taeris and the small team of scholars toward a narrow passage that would lead them, hopefully, to salvation. The maintenance tunnels were in worse condition than anticipated. Centuries of disuse had resulted in collapsed sections, forcing their small party to navigate treacherous detours. Water had seeped through the rock in places, creating slippery patches that had claimed the life of one scholar already. a young Azurian who had fallen into a crevasse so deep they couldn't see the bottom. Morale was low as they paused to rest in a relatively stable chamber. Taeris distributed ration bars from the scholar's supplies, nutrient-dense food that tasted like clay but provided necessary energy. Kira chewed methodically, her mind racing through contingency plans. "How much further?" she asked when Taeris settled beside her. "Half-day's journey if no more collapses." The alien seemed exhausted, its normally bright blue skin dulled with fatigue. "Tunnel ends near forest edge, then 2 hours surface travel to crash site." "And the hunters?" "Scouts report many at crash site. Building. Structures." This was concerning news. "What kind of structures?" Taeris hesitated. "Ritual platforms. For sacrifice." The implication was clear enough. If captured, Kira could expect a fate worse than simple execution. The hunter's religious fervor had transformed her from mere intruder to blasphemer, a desecrator of their cosmic order who required ceremonial cleansing. "Lovely," she muttered. "And I don't suppose your ancient ship weapons are portable?" "Few remain, power cells weak, not reliable." Taeris gestured to the star metal blade Kira carried. "That most reliable technology we have." "Great, a knife against an army of fanatics." The odds weren't improving. One of the scouts returned, conferring urgently with the expedition leader, an older scholar named Varys, who had once been a hunter before converting to the scholar faction. His knowledge of hunter tactics had already saved them from several potential ambushes. "Problems?" Kira asked as Taeris listened to their exchange. "Hunters in tunnels," Taeris confirmed grimly. "Found entrance near colony, following our path." "How many?" "Too many. 30, maybe more." Their own group numbered 12, including Kira. All scholars except for Varys, and none trained for combat except perhaps the former hunter. Even with superior knowledge of the tunnel system, they couldn't hope to outrun or outfight such a force. Varys approached, his expression solemn. "Must split," he said in broken English. "Some stay, delay hunters, others take you to ship." "No," Kira objected immediately. "I won't let people sacrifice themselves for me." Taeris translated her protest to Varys, who responded with what sounded like firm insistence. "He says no choice," Taeris explained. "Hunters find colony if not stopped. All scholars die. All knowledge lost." "Then I'll stay too," Kira declared. "I can fight." Varys shook his head vigorously, speaking to Taeris again. "He says you must live, must tell your people truth, must return." Taeris's voice softened. "Says your survival more important than any Azurian now." The weight of this declaration stunned Kira into momentary silence. What could possibly make her life more valuable than those of the scholars who had protected her? What truth was so important that it justified such sacrifice? Before she could press for answers, sounds of pursuit echoed through the tunnels, the rhythmic chanting of hunter war cries, still distant but growing closer. "No time," Varys insisted, physically pushing Kira toward the forward tunnel. "Go now." 6 scholars, including Taeris, were designated to continue with Kira. The remaining 6 would stay behind with Varys to delay the hunters for as long as possible. As they prepared to separate, Kira addressed the volunteers. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I promise your sacrifice won't be in vain." Taeris translated. The scholars touched their hands to their foreheads, in what appeared to be a gesture of acknowledgement or blessing. Varys approached Kira one final time, pressing something into her hand, a small data crystal, similar in appearance to the bioluminescent stones but clearly technological in nature. "When safe," he said, "watch." Before she could ask what it contained, he turned away, drawing an ancient energy weapon that hummed with unstable power. The sacrificial team moved to defensive positions, preparing for their last stand. Kira's group continued forward, the sounds of their companions fading behind them. They moved with renewed urgency, knowing that each step took them closer to potential salvation, and that their friends' lives purchased each of those steps. The tunnels gradually sloped upward, the air growing fresher as they approached the surface. After several hours of difficult travel, they reached a section where roots broke through the ceiling, signs that they were nearing the outer world. "Closed now," Taeris whispered. "Must be quiet. Hunters patrol forest. They proceeded with extreme caution, eventually reaching a concealed exit partially overgrown with vegetation. The scout went ahead, returning after several tense minutes to report that the immediate area appeared clear. One by one they emerged into the alien forest. The twin moons of Proxima Centauri b illuminated the landscape with their eerie blue-violet light, casting double shadows that seemed to move independently from their owners. The crash site lay 2 hours' journey to the northeast, across terrain that offered minimal cover. They had barely covered half a kilometer when the first arrow struck the ground beside them, a warning shot that announced the hunters had found them. "Run!" Taeris shouted, abandoning stealth for speed. They sprinted through the underbrush, branches whipping at their faces and bodies. Behind them, war cries indicated the hunters were in pursuit. Kira pushed herself to the limit, her training and Earth-adapted muscles giving her an advantage in raw speed, but the Azurians' familiarity with the terrain kept them close behind. An arrow found its mark in one of the scholars, who fell with a cry of pain. Two others stopped to help their comrade, waving for the rest to continue. "Don't stop," one called in their language, which Taeris translated for Kira. "Reach the ship." Their group was now down to 4, Kira, Taeris, and 2 other scholars. They continued their desperate flight, the sounds of fighting behind them suggesting their companions had engaged the hunters to buy them time. The crash site came into view, a scarred clearing where Kira's escape pod had torn through the forest canopy. As Taeris had reported, the hunters had constructed ritual platforms around the wreckage, adorning them with symbols that Kira recognized as inversions of the scholar's star spiral, perversions of the original meaning that transformed hope for the future into fear of the unknown. There, Kira pointed to the pod, its hull breached, but the emergency beacon housing still intact. "If I can reach the communication array, I can activate the beacon." Between them and the pod stood at least a dozen hunters, their blue skin darkened to near black in the moonlight. They had not yet detected the small group observing from the forest's edge. "Need distraction," one of the remaining scholars whispered. Before anyone could propose a plan, the scholar had already begun moving, circling to approach the site from the opposite direction. The second scholar nodded grimly and headed in another direction, leaving only Kira and Taeris. "They draw hunters away," Taeris explained. "When they attack, we run to ship." "More sacrifices," Kira said bitterly. "How many more have to die for me to get home?" "Not for you," Taeris corrected. "For truth. For future." It gripped Kira's arm with surprising strength. Some things worth dying for. Before Kira could respond, a commotion erupted on the far side of the clearing. One of the scholars had revealed himself, firing an energy weapon that sent hunters scrambling for cover. Moments later, the second scholar attacked from another angle, creating confusion among the ritual guardians. "Now," Taeris urged, pulling Kira forward. They sprinted across the open ground toward the pod, taking advantage of the chaos. They had covered half the distance when a hunter spotted them, shouting an alarm. Arrows began to fall around them as they ran, one grazing Kira's arm with burning pain. Taeris stumbled suddenly, an arrow protruding from its thigh. Kira skidded to a halt, turning back. "Go!" the alien gasped. "Reach beacon!" "Not without you," Kira insisted, helping Taeris to its feet. Supporting the wounded alien, she continued toward the pod, their pace now agonizingly slow. Hunters were converging from all directions, abandoning the fight with the scholars to focus on the primary target. Arrows continued to fall, miraculously missing their marks. They were 20 meters from the pod. 10, 5. A hunter leaped into their path, curved blade raised for a killing stroke. Kira released Taeris, drawing the star metal blade in one fluid motion. The hunter's strike met her parry with a sound like crystal bells. The alien weapon shattered against the superior metal, leaving the hunter momentarily defenseless. An advantage Kira exploited without hesitation, driving her blade into the warrior's chest. "Keep going," she shouted to Taeris, who had collapsed against the pod's hull. More hunters approached. Kira fought with desperate efficiency, her training and the star metal blade giving her an edge that surprised the warriors. 3 fell before her, but more kept coming. A glancing blow caught her shoulder, opening a deep gash. Another strike nearly found her neck, missing by millimeters. She was tiring. There were too many. Behind her, she could hear Taeris working to open the pod's damaged hatch. If she could just hold them off a little longer. An arrow struck her leg, driving her to one knee. The hunters closed in, their expressions triumphant. The tallest warrior raised his blade for the killing blow. A blinding light erupted from behind Kira, accompanied by a sound that seemed to pierce directly into her brain. The hunters recoiled, covering their eyes and ears. Kira turned to see Taeris standing in the open hatch, holding what appeared to be an emergency flare from the pod's survival kit. But the light it emitted was unlike any flare Kira had ever seen, pulsing with patterns that seemed to interfere with neural processes. "Hurry," Taeris called. "Effect temporary." Kira limped to the PC, the arrow in her leg sending waves of agony with each step. She collapsed inside and Taeris sealed the hatch behind them. The pod's interior was dark except for the emergency lights that still functioned on backup power. Kira dragged herself to the communication console, which had sustained damage but appeared operational. "What was that light?" she asked as she worked to activate the beacon. "Emergency tool from pod," Taeris explained. "Designed for hostile life forms. Affects neural pathways." Kira nodded, focusing on the task at hand. The beacon system required authentication, which she provided through her neural implant, standard issue for all expedition members. The console hummed to life, systems initializing. "Beacon operational," announced the pod's AI in a calm voice that seemed absurdly out of place in their current situation. "Broadcasting distress signal on all emergency frequencies. Estimated response time, 6 to 8 hours. Outside, the hunters had recovered from the neural disruption. They began pounding on the pod's hull, their weapons creating a cacophony of metallic impacts. The structure was designed to withstand atmospheric entry, but not a sustained assault. Eventually, they would find a way in. 6 to 8 hours, Kira repeated grimly. "We need to hold out that long." Taeris had collapsed into one of the pod's seats, the arrow still protruding from its thigh. Its skin had taken on a grayish tinge that Kira assumed indicated blood loss or shock. "Let me help you with that," she said, moving to examine the wound. "Later," Taeris insisted. "Watch Crystal first." It pointed to the data storage device Varys had given her. Important. The pod had a universal data reader designed to interface with potential alien technology encountered during exploration. Kira inserted the crystal, and a holographic display activated. The image showed an older human male in an expedition uniform that Kira didn't recognize. The design was unlike anything in current use, with insignia she couldn't identify. The recording was clearly ancient, with degraded quality and periodic data corruption. "This is Commander James Chen of Earth Expeditionary Force Prometheus," the man began, his voice distorted by time. "Date is April 17th, 2157. If you're viewing this, you've encountered the Azurian civilization on Proxima Centauri B, as we did approximately 50 years ago." Kira stared in shock. 2157? Earth had barely achieved reliable space travel within the solar system by that date, let alone interstellar exploration. And yet, here was evidence of a mission she had never heard of, to a star system humanity had only recently reached, or so she had been told. "Our mission was classified," Chen continued, confirming her suspicions. "The first human attempt at interstellar travel, using experimental drive technology that was later abandoned. We were presumed lost when communication failed, but the truth is more complex." The recording showed images of first contact with the Azurians, meetings between humans and the Scholar faction, exchanges of knowledge, collaborative projects. Then, footage of conflict as the Hunter faction attacked the human encampment. "We arrived at a critical moment in Azurian history," Chen explained. Their civilization had already begun to fracture between those who embraced their spacefaring heritage and those who rejected it in favor of a simpler existence. Our arrival accelerated this division. The next segment showed humans fighting alongside Scholar Azurians against Hunter war parties, a conflict that appeared to end in stalemate. "We established an uneasy truce with humans and Scholar Azurians retreating to the mountains, while the Hunters claimed the lowlands. For nearly a decade we coexisted, sharing technology and knowledge. We helped the Scholars preserve their ancestral records. They taught us about sustainable adaptation to alien environments." Chen's expression grew somber. "Eventually, Earth sent a recovery mission. The experimental drive had been refined, making rescue possible. Most of us chose to return home. A few remained with the Azurians, having formed deep bonds during our time here. The hologram flickered, data corruption increasing. What follows is the reason this record exists. Upon our return to Earth, all evidence of our mission was erased. The Proxima Centauri expedition was struck from history, classified beyond top secret. Those of us who returned were sworn to silence, our neural implants modified to prevent disclosure. Chen leaned closer to the recording device, his expression urgent. They feared what we had learned, that humanity is not alone, that we are late arrivals in a galaxy already shaped by countless civilizations. The Azurian colony ship contained star maps showing hundreds of inhabited worlds, records of a galactic community that existed millions of years ago. The recording deteriorated further, Chen's image breaking apart into pixels. His voice continued, fragmented but comprehensible. Earth governments feared panic, controlled disclosure. But there's more. The Azurian records suggest Earth itself, previously visited, human evolution possibly influenced by earlier contacts. The implications were staggering. Chen was suggesting that humanity's development had been shaped by extraterrestrial intervention, that humans themselves might be the product of ancient genetic engineering or cultural influence from spacefaring civilizations. This knowledge, too dangerous, power structures, religious institutions, everything would change. Chen's image stabilized briefly. I'm leaving this record with the Azurian scholars. Someday humanity will return here, deserve to know truth, our origins, our place in... The recording ended abruptly, leaving Kira and Taeris in stunned silence. Outside, the hunters continued their assault on the pod, but the noise seemed distant and irrelevant compared to the revelation they had just witnessed. Your people knew, Taeris said quietly, came before, learned truth, left, and then covered it up, Kira added, anger building within her. Erased it from our history. The implications were enormous. If Chen's claims were true, everything humanity believed about its origins and place in the universe was built on lies or at best incomplete information deliberately withheld by those in power. Now understand why important? Taeris asked. Why scholars protect you? Why sacrifice? Kira nodded slowly. This isn't just about me getting home. It's about the truth finally reaching Earth. She held up the data crystal. This could change everything. A particularly loud impact against the hull reminded them of their immediate predicament. The hunters were becoming more organized in their assault, focusing on the pod's weakest points. 6 to 8 hours suddenly feels very long, Kira observed grimly. Taeris's condition was deteriorating. The arrow in its thigh had been designed to cause maximum damage, barbed to tear flesh when removed, possibly poisoned. Kira did what she could with the pod's limited medical supplies, but without specific knowledge of Azurian physiology, her efforts were largely guesswork. Tell me about your world, Taeris requested as Kira worked. About Earth. Kira described her home planet, the oceans and mountains, the diverse ecosystems, the sprawling cities and remote wilderness. She spoke of humanity's struggles and triumphs, their slow journey toward the stars. Throughout her account, she found herself wondering how much of human development might have been influenced by ancient extraterrestrial contact, as Chen had suggested. Sounds beautiful, Taeris said weakly. Wish could see. Maybe you will, Kira replied, though they both knew it was unlikely. When my people arrive, we could bring you with us. Taeris's facial ridges rippled in what might have been a smile. Too late for me, not for truth. The hunters outside had begun a new tactic, piling combustible materials around the bomb in an apparent attempt to smoke them out or cook them alive. The temperature inside was already rising. Environmental controls failing, announced the pod's AI with the same maddening calm. Estimated system failure in 2 hours. Their rescue was still at least 4 hours away, assuming the beacon's time estimate was accurate. They wouldn't survive that long. Kira searched the pod for anything that might help. Weapons, tools, anything to fight back or escape. The emergency kit contained a laser cutter designed for removing debris, but its power cell was nearly depleted. There was also a signal amplifier that could boost the beacon's transmission strength, potentially reducing response time. Taeris, she said urgently, if I boost the beacon signal, could it reach your people, the scholars in the mountain? The alien considered this. Maybe. Colony has receivers. Old technology, but might detect. It was a desperate plan, but their only option. Kira connected the amplifier to the beacon system, reconfiguring it to broadcast on multiple frequencies, including those that the ancient colony ship might recognize. Broadcasting enhanced signal, the AI confirmed. Warning, power consumption increased, life support compromised. The temperature continued to rise as the hunter's fire grew. Smoke began to seep through small breaches in the hull. Taeris's breathing had become labored, its skin now a pale gray blue that Kira feared indicated approaching death. Stay with me, she urged, gripping the alien's six-fingered hand. Help is coming. Taeris's four-pupiled eyes fixed on hers with surprising clarity. If die, take crystal. Show truth. You're not going to die, Kira insisted, though the words felt hollow even as she spoke them. The pod's internal temperature had reached dangerous levels. Kira's vision was beginning to blur from heat and smoke inhalation. She checked the beacon status, still broadcasting, still waiting for response. How long had it been? 1 hour? 2? Time seemed to stretch and compress in the suffocating heat. Through her delirium, Kira became aware of a new sound outside. Not the rhythmic pounding of the hunters, but something different. Weapons fire, shouts of alarm, conflict. Something's happening, she told Taeris, though she wasn't sure if the alien could still hear her. The assault on the pod had ceased. Instead, sounds of battle surrounded them. Energy weapons discharging. The war cries of hunters, and another sound that Kira initially couldn't identify, but eventually recognized as the scholar's battle chant. Your people, she realized. They received the signal. Whether Taeris understood, Kira couldn't tell. The alien's eyes had closed, its breathing shallow and irregular. The pod's hatch suddenly burst open, admitting a rush of relatively fresh air along with 2 scholar Azurians in what appeared to be ancient battle armor salvaged from the colony ship. They spoke rapidly in their language, lifting Taeris with gentle efficiency. One of them addressed Kira in broken English. Come, not safe, return colony. Clutching the data crystal and the star metal blade, Kira followed them out of the pod into chaos. The clearing had become a battlefield, with hunters and scholars engaged in desperate combat. The scholars were outnumbered but better equipped, wielding energy weapons and protective gear from their ancestral technology. Her rescuers led her toward the forest, where more scholars waited with a transport, a hovering platform that seemed cobbled together from colony ship components and local materials. They placed Taeris on this, along with other wounded, while fighters formed a protective perimeter. Your signal reached old satellite, one scholar explained to Kira as they prepared to depart. Still orbiting, colony received. And my people, will they find us? Other signals still broadcasting. They come soon. The scholar gestured to the sky. We watch. When they approach, bring you back. The transport activated, rising slightly higher above the ground. With one last look at the Pison, the vessel that had brought her to this world and might have become her tomb, Kira joined the scholars in their retreat. They traveled swiftly through the forest, using paths known only to the scholar faction. Behind them, the sounds of battle gradually faded, suggesting the hunters had not pursued. Whether this indicated victory or strategic withdrawal, Kira couldn't tell. They reached the mountain base by dawn, entering the tunnel system through a different entrance than the one Kira had previously used. The journey to the colony was faster this time, the scholars taking more direct routes now that stealth was no longer their primary concern. When they arrived at the ancient colony ship cavern, Kira was surprised to find it transformed. The scholars had activated more of the dormant systems, illuminating sections that had been dark during her previous visit. Medical facilities had been prepared, and Taeris was immediately taken there, along with the other wounded. The elder greeted Kira with evident relief. You live, good. Truth survives. Barely, Kira replied, showing the data crystal. I saw the recording. I understand now why this matters so much. The elder nodded solemnly. Your people forget past, need remembering. It gestured to the colony ship. We activate old communication system. Monitor your rescue ship approach. How long? 2 hours, maybe less. They respond to beacon. Come fast. 2 hours. After everything she had endured, salvation was finally within reach. Kira felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her, the accumulated stress and injuries demanding attention now that immediate survival was no longer in question. The scholars provided medical treatment for her wounds, cleaning and bandaging the arrow injury to her leg, applying healing compounds to the gash on her shoulder. Their techniques blended their ancestral technology with adaptations developed over generations on this world, proving remarkably effective despite the physiological differences between humans and Azurians. When she had been treated, Kira asked to see Taeris. They led her to a medical chamber within the colony ship itself, a space that seemed to have been preserved intact despite the millennia since the crash. Taeris lay on a diagnostic platform, surrounded by equipment that monitored its condition. The arrow had been removed, the wound treated, but the alien's color remained alarmingly pale. "Will recover?" Kira asked the medical attendant. "Uncertain," came the honest reply. "Poison and arrow, ancient type, working on antidote." Kira approached the platform, taking Taeris' hand in hers. The alien's eyes opened slowly, recognition dawning. "Kira," it whispered. "You safe." "Thanks to you and your people," she replied. "My rescue ship is coming. Just 2 more hours." "Good. Take Crystal. Show truth." "I will," Kira promised, "and I'll come back with diplomats, scientists, people who will listen and learn from your scholars. No more secrets." Taeris' facial ridges rippled weakly. "Hope so. Tired of hiding." A scholar entered the chamber, approaching with urgency. "Elder requests presence. Important news." Kira squeezed Taeris' hand one last time before following the messenger back to the colony's command center. There, the Elder and several senior scholars were gathered around a holographic display showing orbital patterns. "Problem," the Elder said without preamble. "Hunter ships activated." "Hunter ships?" Kira asked, confused. "They have spacecraft?" "Ancient defensive system," one scholar explained, "from colony days. Designed protect planet from threats. Hunters found control center long ago. Use against scholars sometimes." The display showed several small craft entering orbit, automated defense drones designed to intercept approaching vessels. If Kira's rescue ship encountered these, it might be destroyed before it could even reach the planet. "Can you warn them?" she asked urgently. "Send a message?" "Trying," the Elder replied, "but Hunter ships jam communications. Cannot reach your people." This was a nightmare scenario. After everything they had endured, after all the sacrifices made to ensure the truth reached Earth, they might fail at the final moment. Her rescue ship destroyed by ancient automated defenses, the knowledge lost forever. "There must be something we can do," Kira insisted. "Could we use the colony's systems to override the Hunter controls?" The scholars exchanged glances. "Possible," one admitted, "but would require going to surface, to old control center in mountains. Very dangerous." "Hunter territory now," another added. "Heavily guarded." "But not impossible," Kira pressed. "If we could reach it, could you deactivate the defensive drones?" "Yes," the Elder confirmed, "but journey would be a suicide mission," Kira finished. "I know, but we've come too far to fail now." The Elder studied her with all four pupils dilated, a sign of respect, Kira had learned. "You would risk this, after surviving so much?" "The truth is bigger than me," she replied, echoing what Taeris and others had told her repeatedly. "It's worth the risk." A new voice joined the conversation, weak but determined. "Not alone." Taeris stood in the doorway, supported by a medical attendant. The alien looked barely able to stand, but its eyes burned with purpose. "I go too." "You're in no condition," Kira began. "No control center," Taeris interrupted. "Was scholar outpost before hunters took. No systems. Need me." The Elder conferred with the other scholars, their discussion rapid and intense. Finally, it turned back to Kira. "We agree. Small team, fast transport, try reach control center." "How long do we have?" Kira asked, studying the orbital display. "Your ship arrives in 90 minutes. Hunter drones intercept in 100 minutes. Must deactivate before." A narrow window, but possible. Kira nodded firmly. "Let's go." The scholars prepared quickly, assembling a team of their best fighters equipped with the remaining functional ancient weapons. A transport was readied, faster than the previous one, designed for rapid deployment rather than stealth or comfort. Taeris, despite objections from the medical staff, insisted on joining. The alien had been given stimulants that temporarily counteracted its weakness, though Kira worried about the long-term effects of such treatment on its already compromised system. "You should stay here," she told Taeris as they boarded the transport. "Guide us remotely." "No," the alien replied with surprising firmness. "Must see this end. Must know truth reaches stars." There was no time to argue. The transport launched, ascending through a vertical shaft that led directly to the surface, an emergency exit that bypassed the tunnel system entirely. They emerged on the mountainside, the morning sun illuminating a landscape transformed by conflict. Smoke rose from multiple locations in the forest below, evidence of the battle that had occurred during the night. The control center was located on a neighboring peak, a structure that had once been an observation post for the colony, but had been repurposed by the hunters as a shrine to their star gods. According to Taeris, the ancient defensive systems remained operational beneath the religious trappings, accessible to those who knew the original design. The transport moved swiftly across the rugged terrain, hugging the contours of the mountains to avoid detection. Taeris directed them, pointing out hunter patrols to avoid and identifying the safest approach to the control center. They were halfway to their destination when disaster struck. A hunter scout spotted them, launching a flare that burned bright against the morning sky, a signal that would bring reinforcements within minutes. No time for stealth now, the team leader decided. Full speed. The transport surged forward, abandoning caution for raw velocity. They crested a ridge and the control center came into view, a hexagonal structure perched on the mountain peak, surrounded by ritual platforms and hunter encampments. Alarms were already sounding. Warriors emerged from the structure in surrounding buildings, weapons ready. The scholars prepared for battle, their ancient energy weapons humming with power. "Get us as close as possible," Kira instructed the pilot. "Taeris and I will make for the control center while you hold them off." The scholar fighters nodded grimly, understanding what she was asking. Another sacrifice in the name of truth. The transport swooped toward the control center, drawing fire from the hunters below. Energy weapons and arrows converged on them, most missing, but some finding their mark. The vehicle shuddered under the impacts but maintained its course. They touched down 50 meters from the main entrance. The scholar fighters immediately deployed, creating a defensive perimeter. Kira helped Taeris from the transport, supporting the weakened alien as they made their way toward the structure. "Which way do the controls?" she asked as they reached the entrance. "Below," Taeris replied, pointing to a spiral ramp that descended into the mountain itself. 3 levels down, central chamber. Behind them, the battle had begun in earnest. The scholars fought with discipline and superior weaponry, but the hunters had numbers and the advantage of prepared positions. It wouldn't be long before they were overwhelmed. Kira and Taeris descended rapidly, following the ramp into the heart of the ancient facility. The architecture was similar to the colony ship, smooth surfaces inset with control panels and data displays, now partially obscured by hunter religious symbols and offerings. They encountered resistance on the second level, 2 hunter priests who attacked with ceremonial blades. Kira met them with the star metal knife, its superior edge making short work of their weapons. She disabled rather than killed them, leaving them unconscious but alive. "No unnecessary deaths," she told Taeris. "There's been enough killing already." The central chamber was vast, a perfect hemisphere carved into the living rock of the mountain. At its center stood a control pedestal surrounded by holographic displays showing the planet, its orbit, and the approaching rescue ship. Red targeting markers indicated the defensive drones preparing to intercept. "There," Taeris said, pointing to the pedestal. "Need override codes." They approached the controls, but Taeris stumbled, the stimulants beginning to wear off. Kira caught the alien before it could fall, helping it to the pedestal. "Talk me through it," she urged. "What do I need to do?" Taeris placed a 6-fingered hand on the control surface, which responded to its touch with lights and symbols. "Authentication first," it explained. Then deactivation sequence. The alien's hands moved across the controls, entering complex patterns that represented the ancient colony's command codes. The system responded sluggishly, centuries of disuse creating delays in the processing. How much time? Kira asked, acutely aware of the battle raging above and the approaching rescue ship. Taeris checked the orbital display. Ship arrives 20 minutes. Drones intercept 30 minutes. Its hands continued their dance across the controls. Almost there. A commotion at the entrance drew Kira's attention. 3 hunter warriors had broken through, weapons raised. She moved to intercept them, star metal blade ready. Keep working, she called to Taeris. I'll hold them off. The hunters attacked as one, their coordinated movements suggesting elite training. Kira fought defensively, using her Earth-evolved reflexes and strength to counter their superior numbers. The star metal blade flashed in the chamber's blue light, parrying strikes and finding openings in the hunter's guard. One fell, then another. The third, seeing his companions defeated, hesitated before attacking with renewed fury. Kira deflected his blade and struck with the pommel of her knife, rendering him unconscious. She turned back to Taeris just in time to see the alien slump over the controls, its strength finally exhausted. The deactivation sequence remained incomplete. Taeris! She rushed to the alien's side, supporting its weight. Stay with me, we're almost there. Cannot finish, Taeris whispered, its skin now a pale gray that indicated critical condition. Need authentication, final code. Tell me, Kira urged. I'll enter it. Taeris shook its head weakly. Genetic. Recognition. Need scholar DNA. The implication was clear. Only an Azurian scholar could complete the sequence. Without Taeris conscious and able to place its hand on the recognition panel, the defensive drones would remain active. Kira refused to accept defeat. There must be another way. An emergency override? A manual deactivation? Taeris's eyes closed briefly, the alien gathering its remaining strength. One way, ancient protocol. Bond DNA. Bond DNA, what does that mean? Your blood, my blood, together on panel. Taeris extended a trembling hand, using a sharp edge of the control panel to cut its palm. Blue fluid welled from the wound. Your turn, Kira understood. Using her knife, she made a shallow cut across her own palm. Red human blood mixed with blue Azurian fluid as they pressed their hands together, then onto the recognition panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the panel illuminated with a brilliance that filled the chamber. The system responded to this unprecedented input, not pure Azurian DNA, not human, but a deliberate combination that represented something the ancient colony ship's designers could never have anticipated. Cooperation between species. The orbital display changed, the red targeting markers disappearing as the defensive drones powered down. Taeris smiled weakly, its facial ridges rippling in satisfaction. Done, it whispered. Ship safe. Above them, the sounds of battle had diminished. Either the scholars had been defeated or the hunters had withdrawn to regroup. Either way, their time was running out. We need to get back to the surface, Kira said, helping Taeris to its feet. The ship will be looking for my beacon signal. They made their way slowly back up the ramp, Taeris leaning heavily on Kira. The alien's condition was deteriorating rapidly, the stimulants completely worn off, and the poison in its system reasserting its effects. They emerged onto the surface to find the battle concluded. The scholar fighters had prevailed, though at heavy cost. Only 3 remained alive, tending to their wounded comrades. The hunter forces had retreated to defensive positions, apparently waiting for reinforcements. Transport damaged, one scholar reported. Cannot fly. Kira checked the sky, then her beacon transmitter. The ship will be in range in less than 10 minutes. They'll detect my signal and land near this position. Hunters know this, Taeris warned, its voice barely audible. We'll attack again before ship lands. As if confirming this assessment, movement could be seen in the hunter encampments, warriors regrouping, preparing for a final assault to capture the Star Traveler before rescue could arrive. Defensive position, Kira ordered, helping Taeris to a sheltered alcove near the control center entrance. We just need to hold out a few more minutes. The remaining scholars formed a perimeter, their energy weapons ready but power cells nearly depleted. Kira positioned herself at the weakest point, star metal blade in hand. Her injuries throbbed with renewed intensity, but adrenaline kept her focused. The hunters attacked just as a new sound became audible. the distinctive roar of atmospheric entry. Kira's rescue ship had arrived and was descending rapidly toward their position. The final battle was brief but intense. The hunters, recognizing their last opportunity to prevent the off-worlders' escape, fought with religious fervor. The scholars responded with equal determination, their centuries-long struggle for truth culminating in this moment. Kira fought alongside them, the star metal blade moving with deadly precision. Hunters fell before her, their superior numbers negated by her training and the quality of her weapon. But they kept coming, wave after wave, driven by belief and fear of the unknown. A shadow passed overhead, the rescue ship, a sleek Earth vessel designed for planetary landing operations. It hovered momentarily, assessing the situation, then descended toward the most open area near the control center. "They're here," Kira called to the scholars. "Fall back to the ship." The rescue vessel touched down, its landing ramp extending even before it had fully settled. Earth Marines in exo armor deployed, their weapons immediately targeting the hunter forces. The superior firepower created an instant stalemate. The hunters withdrew to cover, recognizing the futility of continuing their attack. Kira helped Taeris toward the ship, the alien barely conscious now. A Marine approached to assist, taking Taeris' weight from her. "Captain Reed," he identified himself, "we picked up your beacon. Didn't expect to find you in the middle of a war zone." "Long story," Kira replied. "This is Taeris, a friend. It needs medical attention immediately." Reed hesitated, eyeing the alien with suspicion. "Ma'am, protocol for first contact situations doesn't include—" "To hell with protocol," Kira interrupted. "Taeris saved my life multiple times. It's coming with us." Something in her tone, or perhaps the blood and dirt covering both of them, convinced the captain. He nodded sharply and directed his medic to attend to the alien. "We need to leave now," Reed insisted. "Our sensors detect multiple hostiles converging on this position. Whatever you did here stirred up a hornet's nest." Kira turned to the remaining scholars. "Come with us," she offered. "Earth should hear your story directly." The scholars conferred briefly before one stepped forward. "I go," it said. "Others stay. Tell our people what happened. Prepare for return." It was a logical compromise. Kira nodded her agreement, and they all boarded the rescue vessel. As the ramp closed, she caught a final glimpse of the alien world that had nearly claimed her life. The blue forests, the twin moons still visible in the morning sky, the ancient control center that represented a civilization's forgotten journey among the stars. The ship lifted off, accelerating rapidly to escape the planet's atmosphere. Kira was led to the medical bay, where doctors immediately began treating her injuries. In an adjacent compartment separated by a transparent barrier, other medical staff worked on Taeris, clearly uncertain about Azurian physiology but doing their best. Captain Reed approached once the immediate medical concerns had been addressed. "We need a debriefing, Specialist Jensen. Command has questions about what happened to your expedition." Kira touched the data crystal that she had kept secure through everything. "I have answers," she said, "but they're not the ones Command is expecting." Reed frowned. "Meaning?" "Meaning this wasn't first contact," Kira replied. "Humanity has been here before, and the record of that visit was deliberately erased from our history." She held up the crystal. "This contains proof, a message from the commander of an Earth expedition that reached this planet in 2157. Technology we weren't supposed to have, knowledge we weren't supposed to find." Reed's expression shifted from confusion to concern. "That's a significant claim." "One I can prove," Kira assured him, "along with evidence suggesting that humanity's entire understanding of its place in the universe is based on carefully constructed lies." The captain was silent for a long moment, processing the implications. Finally, he nodded slowly. "I'll arrange for secure communications with Command once we're in orbit. They'll want to hear this directly." "No," Kira said firmly. "No secure channels, no classified briefings. This goes public, the whole truth to everyone." "That's not your decision to make, Specialist." "It became my decision when people died to ensure this knowledge survived," Kira countered, her voice hardening. "I watched scholars sacrifice themselves so this truth could reach Earth. I won't dishonor that sacrifice by allowing it to be buried again." From the adjacent medical compartment, Taeris watched this exchange with evident concern, despite its weakened state. The alien understood enough English to grasp the conflict unfolding. Reed seemed about to argue further when the scholar who had accompanied them intervened, speaking in halting English. Truth belongs to all, it said simply. Not few. Stars are future for all people, all species. The captain looked between the two aliens and Kira, recognition dawning in his eyes that he faced something larger than a simple protocol dispute. This was a pivotal moment, one that would determine whether humanity continued down a path of controlled information and manufactured history or embraced a more complex but honest understanding of its place among the stars. "I'll take your statement on record," Reed finally said. "Unclassified. What happens after that is beyond my authority." It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a start. Kira nodded her acceptance of this compromise. The truth would be documented, recorded in multiple formats that would be difficult to erase completely. And she would have allies, Taeris, the scholar, perhaps even some among the rescue team who would recognize the significance of what they had discovered. As the ship accelerated toward the rendezvous point with their main vessel, Kira moved to Taeris's bedside. The alien's condition had stabilized somewhat under Earth medical care, though its prognosis remained uncertain. "We made it," she told Taeris, taking its six-fingered hand. "The truth is going home." The alien's facial ridges rippled weakly. "Good, long wait. Finally end." "This is just the beginning," Kira promised. "Once people know, everything changes. How we see ourselves, our history, our future, no more isolation, no more pretending we're alone in the universe." "Dangerous time," Taeris warned. "Change never easy." "No," Kira agreed, "but necessary. Like you told me, some things are worth the risk." Through the viewport, stars became visible as they left the atmosphere. Countless points of light representing worlds humanity had yet to explore. Civilizations they had yet to encounter. Or perhaps civilizations they had already met and forgotten. Connections erased by those who feared the implications of cosmic community. The data crystal felt warm in Kira's hand, as if the truth it contained generated its own energy, a force that, once released, could never be contained again. Whatever awaited them on Earth, resistance from authorities, denial from institutions whose power rested on controlled narratives, she was ready to face it. The cycle the Elder had spoken of was continuing. Humanity would remember its place among the stars, reclaim the knowledge that had been hidden, and finally take its place in a universe far more complex and interconnected than they had been permitted to believe. As Proxima Centauri B receded behind them, Kira made a silent promise to return, to bridge the gap between worlds, to honor the sacrifices made in the name of truth, and to ensure that the scholar's long vigil had not been in vain. The truth was going home, and nothing would ever be the same again.